We have a very important week coming up. It's called National Carers Week. It runs from the 10th to the 17th of October. And we thought we'd go to someone who's been a terrific advocate and supporter of carers for the last few months, because Lord knows we've needed their assistance. I'm talking about Nicole Dunn from Empower Aged Care. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, George.
A very important week coming up. First things first, what is National Carers Week? Give us a sense.
Yeah, so National Carers Week is a really important week where we raise awareness, recognise and really shed some light on the 2.65 million carers there are in Australia. So it's about 1 in 11 people who are a carer. So chances are people watching will either be a carer themselves or know someone who is a carer. So it's a really important week to raise that awareness.
Let's talk about carers. Let's talk about the role of being a carer. What does it entail?
So really the role of a carer is to provide, support and assistance to another person who really requires that support and assistance. And that might be because someone has a physical disability, a mental health illness, a health illness. It could be that someone is really frail. So there are two key points. It's about there is a need for support, and also that a carer is providing regular support and assistance. And the way that looks can be very different for everyone. It might be anything from helping someone to walk, to preparing a meal, to feeding someone, to provide some memory prompting. The range of tasks that carers do really is so varied in that important role.
You were a carer, you have been a carer. Where did it start for you? Where did the journey of carer start for you, Nicole?
Yeah, so for myself, I became a carer about 5 years ago. It was something that for me was very unexpected, unplanned, and I was a carer for my grandmother. So I guess I fell into it, you could say, because despite her being very well, normally she actually experienced 2 weeks where she was quite ill and she became quite jaundiced and was sent to an emergency department. And unfortunately, in emergency, they found out that she had terminal pancreatic cancer. So she was given a prognosis of 1 year to live. And, myself working in healthcare, I recognised that she was going to need a carer, something I'd never done before. So at the age of 32 and my grandmother being 82, I made the decision within a couple of weeks to actually move in with her. And, I found myself doing, these tasks that I've just spoken about other carers, doing and, arranging services. And suddenly she couldn't drive. So how were we going to, now I've got to get her each week for a weekly blood test and then a weekly chemo and, installing rails that we'd never had to, even think about before, let alone arrange. So, I was very fortunate to be her living carer for about 18 months when she was at home, and then she spent her last 6 months in a nursing home. And myself and other family, continued to provide care and support to her during that time.
It's interesting that she was given a year and she lasted 18 months. So clearly you made those final days as special as you could and as comfortable as you could.
Yeah, certainly did my best to, absolutely.
Tell me something, is that what drew you to continue to be, in this wonderful, I suppose it's a calling. You've got to feel it. It's one thing to be your grandmother, but as a carer, there are people out there who are doing it and they're not members of the family, they're there as professional carers.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly, it was my calling, you could say, to do what I'm doing now. Being a carer myself, I recognise that, whilst it's really rewarding, it's also really, really challenging. And there are times in which it's really tough. And, for me, knowing how difficult it can be and to arrange services and who do you call and, filling out all the paperwork, that sort of is what really drove me to continue my work in aged care and arranging home care for other people that, might not be as fortunate as myself to have a healthcare background.
Nicole Dunn is the person we're speaking to. She's from Empower Aged Care, and as you've heard, she's been a carer. What are some of the real challenges that our carers are facing in their day-to-day jobs, and how do they relax? Who actually provides care to them?
Yeah, so I guess there's been quite a lot of research that's been done in this area, and certainly comparing carers to, people that are not carers. And I guess we know that there are quite a lot of challenges, and some of those are financial. So we know that carers often have a lower weekly mean income compared to non-carers. That employment can be more challenging because you may need to reduce your work hours, come out of the workforce, or commit to more unstable types of work, so you can also be with someone and do that caring role. We know that stress, anxiety, and feelings of isolation can also be much higher in carers. And often carers also put the healthcare of the person they're looking after ahead of their own healthcare needs. So that can be a challenge as well. I feel for myself, I probably experienced each of those challenges at some point over the course of being a carer. And there were times in which I felt quite isolated as well. The lives my peers were leading at that age were very different to the life that I was leading. And so there are times in which it can be quite challenging.
Nicole Dunn, are we getting better at helping our carers to do what they do?
Yeah, look, I think we are, and that's certainly a key part of National Carers Week. Is you can't provide help, support, and assistance unless that awareness of carers and their role is actually out there. So it is something that's improving. I always encourage carers to talk about what's going on in their lives, whether it be talking with family, friends, or their doctor. But there are certainly more formalised supports out there as well, and the main support that the government has provided is the Carer Gateway program. And if you type in Carer Gateway to Google, that'll come up quite quickly. And it's really a way for carers to get carer counselling, to access programs that are helpful to them as a carer, or services and supports for the person that they actually care for. Carers can also connect to other carers through the Carer Gateway program, which is also really important to reduce that isolation that many carers can feel. So we're certainly getting better at it, absolutely.
And is there more training that we can offer them to make it a little bit easier to make that transition from where they are now to the more formal carer role?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one because, on one hand, of course, more training and education and supports is always going to be helpful. At the same time, everyone's circumstance is different. And, I don't know if the amount of training can prepare you for what can sometimes be the unknown. It was certainly the unknown for me. I think the key is certainly offering, whilst the online and phone-based programs are wonderful, and to be honest, being able to talk to a specific carer support service is a godsend. It really is. Also having access to, those face-to-face supports as well. I certainly found it helpful, after a year when I actually met someone else my age who was a carer, because it took so long to identify someone that was just in the same boat as me. Yeah.
Thank you for giving us a sense of the role of a carer and just how important a role they play in the lives of so many people who actually need the best care that can be provided for them. National Carers Week. It's a national celebration, and we can call it that because we need to celebrate them. We need to make them feel even more special than they are. It runs from the 10th to the 17th of October. National Carers Week. Nicole Dunn, thank you for helping us through it.
Thank you.
Nicole Dunn, and Nicole's done a number of interviews on The Informer. If you want to find them, make sure you follow The Informer and the website theinformer.tv.